first do the VDP project, how it works, and once you have an understanding of that, then we can talk a bit about the school board, because you'll be seeing some of that tomorrow. The Village Development Partnership, or we call it VDP for short. It's a village development program, basically at the scale of a whole village, that focuses development in 5 key areas. So there's community empowerment, income generation, there's the environment, health, and education. All this is done by the villagers. We act as facilitators. So they'll be doing everything from the planning, implementation, and evaluation of the project. And we'll be the ones training them and giving them the necessary tools to do so. So generally as a project, we separate into 2 phases. The first phase is the preparation phase, and the second phase is the actual implementation. On the preparation, it starts off in day 1 where we enter the village for the first time. We present the concept of the project to the villagers in a large village meeting and ask the villagers if they're ready to put in the effort and develop their villages themselves. If they say they're ready, then we ask them to establish a committee, we call the Village Development Committee, or VDC. That would be the main task force. The VDC itself is comprised of 32 people, that are separated into 4 subcommittees. Each subcommittee is composed of 8 people, half a woman, half a men. So there's 4 committees. There's the Village Development Bank Committee, there's the Village Youth Government, there's the Council of Elders, and there's the Health and Environmental Committee. So each of them are 8 people, at least half a woman, more is fine, but less no. So altogether it's 32. And once the committees are established, then we need to help them with the planning part of the project. So we have a process called the Community Needs Assessment. That we use 2 main tools in it. The first one called the Bamboo Ladder. The Bamboo Ladder is a self-assessment tool for villagers to rate the quality of their lives on a scale from 1 to 10. We ask them how they view the quality of life 1 year ago in the past, in the present, 1 year in the future, and 2 years from now, their expectations for the future. And this in 8 different areas. So there's on health, there's education for the children, economic, village cohesiveness, etc., etc. So for each of them, we say, so if 1 were the worst grade possible and 10 were the best possible, where would you put yourself a year ago? They say, oh, maybe in terms of health, we were at 4 last year. They have to give a reason why. Maybe last year there was an epidemic, or road construction was bad, so it was very difficult to get to the health center, etc. They have to give reasons. Then we ask, okay, what about this year? So, oh, this year it's a bit better, we're at 5. Again, we ask why. So, oh, well, now maybe there's a government program, so healthcare is cheaper than before, or the roads are better, we can get there. There are village groups that help the healthcare of the elderly, etc., etc. So they have to give reasons. And 1 year in the future, 2 years in the future, so their expectations, how they expect things to improve or get worse. So this is it's a 1-day process for them to do this in 8 key areas of development. So it's not us saying that their lives are better or worse, it's them telling us how they view their quality of lives. Then we move into the second part of the community needs assessment. That one is done to draft a village development plan. So community needs assessment, we call it CNA for short. We ask the villagers to draw a map of their village, how they view their village today. So they break down into groups, make different maps, and then group them as a map that they believe represents the whole village. Then we ask them to draw a second map. That one will be their village in the future, or the village of their dreams. But basing it on the map that they have just drawn before. So, oh, well, the village in the future will be cleaner, so there is no trash, the forests are bigger, we'll have a community training center, etc. Everything they want to be in the village will be in there. Then we ask them to explain the difference between these 2 maps. So what has been added into it? And for everything that has been added or changed, they have to explain what needs to be done for that to happen. So, oh, the village is cleaner, so we need to organize regular village cleanups. So one of the youth will be listing all these activities that they come up with. We have a training center, so we need to establish a training center, etc., etc. What we have at the end is a list of activities. We ask them to separate those into 3 categories. The first one is what can they do on their own if they start groups, if they get started right away. Second one is what do they need, what can they do in cooperation with like an external partner, either the local government or anyone locally. Maybe they would be contributing the labor, but the budget would be coming from elsewhere. Or maybe they can try to find the budget locally if all the villagers contribute to it, but they will need technical assistance. And then the third category is what they need to request external assistance, because both in terms of resources or technology, it's too much for them to do on their own. Then we have these categories, we have these activities in 3 categories, and then they prioritize. And the top 5, they have to develop a plan. What resources are needed for this to happen? How long will it take? Who will be doing it? And then they appoint one of the committee members as the key person for follow-up. He'll be the one that has to make it happen. So if maybe they need government, they say they want to improve the roads, so the activity is like write a proposal to the local government, and this villager will be the one coordinating with the village headman to make sure it happens, etc. So this is the draft village development plan. Then we take them on an eye-opener trip to visit other projects based on the activities they have listed. So we identify other projects that have been doing similar things for them to learn from their peers. Other villagers that have either been doing it successfully or unsuccessfully for them to see if it's a good idea or not. So they see many different things. Maybe certain things that we believe would be useful to the villagers, but they may not have thought of. We'll be putting in the eye-opener trip as well. We're not telling them what is good or bad. We just leave them with questions or activities. Then when they come back, they have new ideas, they have different types of thoughts, so they summarize all that and then they finalize the village development plan. That marks the end of phase 1, the preparation phase. Then phase 2, the actual implementation, starts with the establishment of the Village Development Bank, or VDP, which is a microfinance, which will be run and operated by the villagers. But again, we tell the villagers that nothing is free in the world, like the video was saying. The reason we call it Village Development Partnership is because it's a partnership between a village and a sponsor. Most of the time it's corporate companies through their CSR. It's not a donor-recipient relationship, it's a partnership. And so we're saying, well, these people, the partners, the people that villagers may call rich. Ask them, how are they rich? Well, they're rich in money. What is money? Money is trees that have been cut and turned into paper that we call cash. And what about you? Are you poor? We said the villagers are not poor. You're also rich. You may not be rich in money, but you're rich in time, you're rich in labor, etc., etc. So we want both partners to contribute to the project. So these people will be giving dead trees. You guys will be giving living trees. So for every tree that the village plants, they receive 40 baht into a microfinance fund. So if they want a 400,000 baht microfinance to plant 10,000 trees, if they need 800,000 baht, then 20,000 trees, etc., etc. The way the money is given is the trees have to survive 1 whole year for them to receive the whole 40 baht. They receive it in installments, depending on how many trees, how long they survive, etc. So then the bank is established. Any villager can become a member of the bank, regardless if he's taking part or not in the tree planting. When you're a member, you have to commit to regular savings, depending on how much you can afford, and also depending on the rules and regulations that the village has drafted. So say I may have some money, so I'll be saving 100 baht a month. The bank is open 1 day per month. Maybe Kuai here, she's in the same village, but she has less money than me. She'll just be saving 30 baht a month. Lydia here is much richer. She'll be saving 500 baht a month, for example. So you commit to this, and every month you come, and on bank operation day, you'll be saving your money. After 6 months, if you haven't defaulted on your savings, only then you're eligible to take out a loan, a microfinance loan, but for business only. You can't take a loan to buy a telephone, motorcycle, etc. It has to be for business. So you're required to fill out a form that says what you're going to borrow the money for. Say you're going to do chicken raising. Say you want to borrow 8,000 baht to do chicken raising. You say, okay, I'll spend 3,000 baht building the chicken pen, 2,000 baht buying the chickens, 3,000 baht for the feed or whatever. I'll be raising the chickens for 3 months. When I sell them, I expect to make a profit of this much. Therefore, I will work out the monthly repayment, this much per month. You're basically required to do a business plan. Because in the past, villagers are not used to financial planning on long term. Whatever money they have in their pocket is what they'll be spending today. And then they'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow arrives, basically. So it's trying to change the people's mindsets. So then say your loan is accepted, you take out the money, you start doing your business. Then every month you have to repay in monthly installments with a 1% interest per month. So as you repay, the Village Development Bank makes a profit. It accumulates this profit, and at the end of the year or second year, depending on how much profits they have, then they will allocate. Some of the profits will go back into the bank to expand it. Some will be going towards the villagers who own shares. All members are required to buy shares in the bank. And And then some of it is allocated for development activities, meaning you go back towards the village development plan and see what activities were in the plan that needed budget that they were not able to find. Then you use the profits of the bank as budget for the activities. So the money doesn't go anywhere. It stays in the village. It's a self-funding project. So that's what makes it sustainable. Our role is to provide training to the villagers, so banking training, accounting training, etc. That's on the village development bank side. The video said that the reason why villagers are poor, we believe, is because they lack two vital inputs. One is access to credit at reasonable rates, so the village development bank answers that. And the other one is the lack of business skills. So to compensate that, we have an activity called the Barefoot MBA. It's business skills trainings that we provide to the villagers. So there's two sides of the training. One is on the academic side of doing business, understanding investment, accounting, how do you calculate profit, how do you develop a business plan. And the other one is skill specific. Say you want to do chicken raising or pig raising, then we'll identify a villager who's an expert chicken raiser or pig raiser, and he'll be the one training you on it. So at the end of the whole training, not only will you understand how to raise chickens or pigs, but you also learn where to buy the feed, how do you market the chickens or the pigs, where do you sell them, etc. So it's the whole cycle of doing business. And so like I said, the project focuses on 5 areas, and for each area we have different activities that we implemented. But which activities are implemented in what village depends on the plan that the villagers develop. So the one village to the next may be very different in terms of what activities happen, but then the structure itself, the approach is the same. So that's in a nutshell, very briefly, that's the VDP as a whole. Anybody has any questions?
So where does, how does the school bird adapt that?
I'm getting to that next.
Okay.
The school bird is the next step after the VDP. We've been doing the VDP for close to 20 years, but in this area, since we've had this center for about 5 years, we're coordinating a bit over 70 villages from here directly. These are the model as I just explained to you. And now, so the VDP is very good at developing these 5 key areas in a village. But now we also have this school and want to have a strong focus on education. And in Kumishai's own words saying, well, if you want to help education, you can't just do education alone. So you have a poor family, and they have a child who's going in primary school. If you give scholarships to him, by the time he finishes primary, you give him more scholarships to finish secondary school. And then you give him a university scholarship. And then he graduates and then gets a job and then starts sending money back. His parents have been living in poverty for over 10 years by the time he's able to finally give back to his family. And if you need to go to school every day and you're on an empty stomach, or you're worrying about your parents who are sick but cannot afford healthcare, etc., it's difficult to have quality education. So that's why we kind of came up with the school bird, which is integrating the VDP with what our school is doing here. The approach is very similar to the VDP, but rather than putting it in a village, we put it in a government school that services, say, 3 to 5 villages. So with one project, you actually have a much greater coverage area. The committees are still elected, but they're all centralized at the school. They're villagers from all the different villages in the school service area, but then the school acts as their office. This is where they hold the meetings. This is where we hold the trainings. Typically a government school, out of 365 days a year, it's only open 200 days, meaning 165 days, practically it's over a third of the year is closed. These are classrooms, these are training facilities are not being utilized. So it's a way of using that to benefit the whole population around it. So it's very similar. The school board, we say, focuses on, it has 3 phases, similar to the VDP's 2 phases. The first one is preparing the communities, both within the school and in the villages. So it's making sure that they're ready for the program and there is a strong cooperation between villages and then the school. So it's a lot of activities like village cleaning, tree planting, etc., to show community cooperation. Within the school at the same time, we start implementing trainings for both the students and the teachers. Focuses on training, it's teacher training, like teaching methods and skills. There's health training, there's IT skills training, and then there's poverty eradication training, like how to do business at the village level, how to do planning for businesses, etc. So this is taught within the school. The first focus is on the families of the children, and then they have to go back to their families, expand it from there, and then eventually reach the whole community. At the same time, we're looking at the school's infrastructure in terms of latrines, drinking water, etc., how that can be improved, the nurse's office, etc. So the phase one focuses a lot on making sure like the base is there, like there's strong cooperation and the basic infrastructure is there. Then phase two is the actual planning phase. So very similar to the VDP, in which villagers develop a plan with the same process, the community needs assessment, etc. It ends with the establishment of the village development bank. And phase three is the implementation of the plan. So same as the VDP, but in all communities surrounding the school, with certain activities focused on the school as well. So the approach is very similar. It just has a greater coverage area. But the school board enables this school here, the Mishai Patana School, to act kind of like as a big brother to the government school and the school board program, which they'll come and they'll have much more interaction with us. They can observe what we're doing here, try to replicate some there, and the school will become a demonstration site for agriculture and different other activities.